guys, what's up? My name's Kirill. Welcome back to another episode at Carismo Design. We've got this custom steering wheel here with an LED shift light. This is one of our signatures. Today we'll be banging this install out on a 675 LT, the one right behind me. Okay guys, so first things first, we always disconnect the battery with every install. Safety first. In your McLarens, it's in your frunk. We're gonna pop that right open and we're gonna start removing the liner which covers the battery. So in the case of the 675 LT, what you're gonna find is you're gonna find a cover over the surround of the liner that is held in by Velcro. We're gonna start by just simply popping that off or removing that. So once that top cover is out, this reveals the inside of the liner. It's gonna show us all of the screws and a couple of hex bolts that we need to remove to get the back liner out. So you're just gonna need a Phillips screwdriver as well as a 4mm hex bit to get those out. We've taken the liberty to pre-remove some of them. You're gonna find them along the outer edge here, right under the cover. Once these come out, the back liner simply lifts up and reveals for us the battery compartment. We have access to the battery, 10mm wrench. We just go to town, take it out. Put something in between so it doesn't reconnect while you're working on the car, and we're good to start. Okay guys, we're on the inside of the car now. We just disconnected the battery. It's time to take the OEM steering wheel off the car. All we'll need for this section is 3 tools. We'll need a flathead screwdriver. We'll need something like a thin Allen key to release the airbag clip of the steering wheel. And then we'll need a 10mm bit to unscrew the center nut of the steering wheel to take it off the column. So let's get started. First things first, we're gonna grab that Allen key. And what we'll do is on the bottom left and right hand side of the steering wheel, you'll see factory marked indentations for where the release clips are within the actual steering wheel housing. So these must be punctured. So where the circle indentation is where you will insert your Allen key. And then you will feel around. Obviously this is a blind maneuver. You'll feel around until you feel resistance from a clip that actually releases the left-hand side of the airbag. This can take a couple of minutes. This could take you a half hour if you're doing it for the first time. Just be patient. Try not to go too crazy, destroying anything on the inside. You should feel light pressure as you're applying it on the spring, and eventually the left-hand side of the airbag will clip out. Okay guys, so we just unclipped right and left-hand side of the airbag with our Allen key. Airbag is ready to come out. Don't yank on it, gently pull it out to expose the clips in the back of it. So what you're gonna find is 2 yellow airbag clips as well as a ground clip. These are not difficult to remove. You just grab your flathead screwdriver, you pop open the orange tab holding that clip, it comes right out. You do the same thing with the other one, and then you'll do the same thing with the ground. We're now ready to remove the silver faceplate that exposes a couple other things we need to do. So this is just held in by 3 T30 Torx bits, screws. We're just gonna remove those, and the faceplate comes right off. Like that. So the faceplate is off. Our last connector is the gray one on the left hand side. We are simply going to depress the little gray tab on that connector, gently pull it out, and this is the last thing we need to unclip. So now that we are ready to take the steering wheel off the car, this is a 10mm bit. I've taken the liberty to break loose that bolt. Now you might have to have somebody bracing the steering wheel holding it while you try to unscrew it, depending on how much Loctite the factory has put on the original wheel. I was able to simply prop it up with my knee and break it loose. We're gonna give it a couple of turns. What this allows is for the center nut to get a little bit of distance but not come out fully. And what we can now do safely is we can wiggle the steering wheel left to right gently until it breaks loose off of the splines where it could be stuck pretty friggin' hard. So you wanna have the center nut in place as a preventative measure to make sure you don't yank the steering wheel off and with it damage or pull out your clock spring. So once we're sure that the steering wheel's off, this is when we can fully remove the center nut. And now we can gently and slowly take the steering wheel off the column while we are mindful of these two yellow wires that we need to route through this hole and not pull the clock spring off. So you're gonna hold the clock spring from behind the steering wheel, as so, and you're gonna slowly pull those pins through. There we go, clock spring intact, steering wheel off the car. So you've got your OEM steering wheel here. Depending on the package of the Carismo steering wheel you bought, you either bought it with the trim included, with the paddles included, or neither, which means you just have the hoop and you would transfer over your trim and your original paddle onto your new Carismo steering wheel. So what we're gonna show you right now is how to remove this original trim as well as the paddles so you can switch it over to your Carismo steering wheel in case that's the way you went. So with our original steering wheel here, the only tools we're gonna need is a trim removal tool and a T20 torque spit. Those two should take care of removing all of the components off of the OEM steering wheel. So first things first, we're gonna start by removing paddles. Paddles are held in by 4 silver bolts, 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top. Once those 4 unscrew, the paddles should be coming off of the back of the wheel in one piece. Go ahead. How soon? Okay.
I could probably.
Okay guys, so now we're gonna remove the trim. The trim is held on by 3 screws in the back. We're gonna flip the steering wheel around. Right here is the first one, second one, and third one on the very bottom of the trim. So we're just gonna pop these screws right off. Same T20 as we were using beforehand. And once all of these 3 screws are loosened, you should be able to start wiggling the trim off of the steering wheel. It sits there pretty tight in the rubber, but gently maneuver it out evenly and it should come right off, just as so. Okay guys, so we've got the trim off, the paddles off. The last thing is to finish taking off your U-shaped decoder, right? We took out the 3 bolts on the front. Now we're gonna take out the 2 more pins on the back. The 2 pins on the back, I'm gonna put a microfiber here so I don't scuff the face of the wheel. The 2 pins of the back are actually your shift paddle mechanisms. So this is your upshift and your downshift. We're gonna take these out in the following fashion. As you see, there's 4 cuts on each of them where you can position a flat head and slowly start hammering it in the counterclockwise direction. This silver housing is actually a screw. It has a thread. So we're gonna position our flathead and we're slowly gonna start hammering in the counterclockwise direction until we can basically spin it by hand. Once you can spin this by hand, you should be able to spin it all the way out, until you can basically remove it completely. And what happens is your shift paddle mechanism pops through on the other side. Here we go. We're gonna do this for both sides and then we're ready to transfer the U-shaped trim, the decoder, over to your new Carismo steering wheel. Okay guys, so this part is only applicable to you if you're installing a Carismo LED shift light steering wheel. This is how we wire the shift light so that it functions in McLarens. Okay guys, so with your steering wheel bundle, you'll have received your LED power module and you'll find 2 spare thin wires with little connector ends attached on both sides. In this instance, we have a blue and an orange. It doesn't matter what color they are. One's gonna end up being our power, the other's gonna end up being our ground. So what we'll do with this long wire is we'll take about 3 to 4 inches of it and cut each one of them at that spot. Boom. These we're gonna put aside for later use. So now the two short wires we created, we're both with connectors. We're gonna clean up on one end and get ready for soldering. We're gonna be using them on the steering wheel portion of this installation right now. Your LED steering wheel will have come with 3 wires sticking out of it on the left-hand side. It'll be a blue, a red, and a black. The blue is not applicable for this installation. So if the 3 wires that you got actually have connectors attached to them, we're just gonna take the connectors and we're gonna cut them all off, make these wires nice and short because we'll be soldering them. So the blue we've cut off, not gonna be using it. We're gonna tuck it away and tape it to the other wires. And then we're gonna focus on our red and our black. That's gonna be our ground, which is the black, and our red, which is gonna be our power. As you remember, we've prepared 2 wires for this. So we've prepared our orange and blue wire. So we're gonna decide which one's gonna be which. I'm just gonna choose our blue as our power, and I'm gonna choose our orange as our ground. And we are simply going to have the cut made on the red and the black and connect them to our blue to red and black to orange, right? We're just gonna extend our power and our ground. Why are we doing this? We want these connectors ready to be used for your installation onto the McLaren steering wheel. So we have connected our blue to red, which has now become the extension of our power, and black to orange, which has now become the extension of our ground. We're ready to connect these wires into our clock spring pin. As you remember, we had this gray pin. So we're gonna be opening up this pin. On the side here, I've pre-popped it for you to see clearly. This is how it closes. We put a flathead in here, lift it up a little bit, and do the exact same thing from the other side. Flathead here, lift it up a little bit. As you see, the pin connector opens just a little bit. You don't want to open it too much. It opens about 30 degrees. Any more than that, you're going to break it. This is sufficient to route our new wires. And as if you've seen, I've already routed our power and I've already routed our ground. So in this connector, you're going to want to see the top right side of it. The top right side in the very upper corner is going to be our ground. So the top right corner is our ground. So whatever your black wire is connected to, in my case the orange, is the pin that you feed into the top right corner. The pin right next to it will be our power, 12 volts. So our red wire, which I connected to the blue one with the connector, I fed into the second from the right slot, which is next to our ground. So these 2 slots are now fully in. We've simply inserted this clip all the way in on both sides, and now we have our connection ready. We can latch this close and we're ready to go put the steering wheel back on the car. Okay guys, we're back in the car. We've got our steering wheel fully assembled. We're going to be putting the LED steering wheel back on the car momentarily. Before that, again, if this is a LED install for you, make sure that we prep the clock spring to have that 12 volts we were talking about that we're wiring within the steering wheel. So what we need to do for this is we need to actually pull the clock spring off the car and do a little bit more wire manipulation. So we're going to take a closer look at the clock spring now. All we're going to need is some pliers and we're going to need a flathead screwdriver. The rest is just done with your hands. Okay, we're going to begin by grabbing the clock spring top and bottom. We're going to rest our thumbs on the center shaft and we're going to gently but firmly start pulling the clock spring forward. So it's just on there by friction. There's going to be no click. You're just going to gently but firmly start removing the clock spring off of the shaft. Now the only thing holding the clock spring in position is the leather housing in the back that covers the shaft. So we're just going to unclip that portion. Just going to unclip that from the back. Here we can see it coming off. And once that's unclipped, slowly but steadily, we just pull the clock spring off. Here we go. So we have our housing here with the clock spring, and we have the wire connector sitting here. So this is going to be the critical connector that we need to remove from this housing. So for that, we will need to depress this black tab downward to unlatch this yellow connector. First, we depress the yellow clip up top. You see the connector slid down a little bit. Now I have the freedom to pull it down all the way, lock it in place, and now this connector simply comes out. Okay, so this is zip tie holding down our wiring on the yellow box. We're gonna cut this black zip tie off. Just gonna grab it by the box. Cut it right off. This is going to release our wires. This is what we need to insert our new wire that you remember us cutting a piece off and applying to the steering wheel. The back end of that wire is what we're now gonna use to route into our new connector here. Okay, so to get the wiring bundle out of this yellow connector, what we're gonna do is we're gonna see that there's a little yellow pin here. This is gonna need to be depressed at the same time as this black piece is what you're pulling out. You could pull by the wire, you could pull by one of these. Just do it gently, make sure you don't obviously break anything. It's in there pretty tight. So I'm gonna depress this and just try tugging at it a little bit. Depress it with my finger, pull it out a little with this. There we go, you see it coming out. Now I'm gonna brace it a little bit so it doesn't go flying and reveal the actual pins themselves. So this connector is now ready to accept our ground and power wires. Basically, this connector is our way of connecting to the steering wheel. The steering wheel itself, we've produced 2 extra wires, one for ground, one for power. Now they link through the steering wheel, connect into the slot, and go all the way back down to give us the power and ground that we need, because the steering wheel area for the McLaren does not have those provided in any of these wires. If you look at the pin connector this way, the top is the direction in which all the wires are bundled together, right? So we're gonna be using the 4th and 3rd pin from the top on the right side. So left, right, right side, count 1, 2, 3, 3rd pin, and 4, 4th pin. Our 4th pin is going to be 12 volts, which is power, and our 3rd pin is going to be ground. So what we're gonna do is we're simply gonna take 2 of our previous wires, which was our orange and blue wire, and blue being our power, we're going to insert it into the 4th slot. Orange is gonna go in the 3rd. So I already fished through 1 wire. All I did here was take this blue wire and shove it down into next to this bundle of other wires with the connector into that opening, right? And then further back in the opening, you're gonna have your OBD2 port opening under the dash, and you're just gonna fish it back out. And we're going to do the exact same thing with the orange wire. We're just gonna push it through here, and we're gonna pull it in through that opening under the dash. So we got that wire going there. Make sure they're routed somewhat next to the bundle of wires. The reason for that is this is a safe place to route it without it catching anything, and you kind of want it to run along the place. So I'm gonna push this orange wire in there as well. After I'm done up here, I'm gonna fish them out from below under the OBD2. And now these 2 wires are ready to go into our connector. So putting these into the connector is pretty simple. You just have to orient them outward to the right side of the connector. So not upward, but with the pin on the wire facing outward towards us. And this goes into the 4th. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom, we got it in our 4th. It'll click in, and it's not gonna, oh, see, it didn't click in all the way. Once you click it in fully, it should not come back out loosely. See, I can't pull it back out. Same with the orange one. This is gonna go in your 3rd slot instead of your 4th. So 1, 2, 3, 3rd slot. We put that wire in here. Boom, it clicked in. Now we have our ground, we have our power added to the bundle. Feel free to use a piece of tape here to secure them, make sure they don't move. And we'll fish them out from the bottom and we're ready to go. Okay guys, so we've got our clock spring back in place. We're ready to put our steering wheel back on. Right before that, we ran that blue wire through the back of the housing into the OBD2 port opening. So we've got our Carismo connector. This is our LED module, right? This is the module that comes with the car. From it, you'll see a loose power wire. This is specifically for applications like in the McLaren where we need to run our own power. So this will be what is giving us 12 volts. So we're gonna get our module, get this white wire from the bundle, and we are going to solder it together with that blue wire that we were mentioning earlier. So this is soldered together. It'll give us our 12 volts that we need. We're ready to simply plug the OBD2 connector into the car, tuck this away in the footwell, get it out of the way, make sure it doesn't dangle, doesn't get in your feet. So guys, all our wiring's in place. We've got our Carismo steering wheel assembled. The only thing missing is our backing plate, which we do once we start mounting the steering wheel. So installation of the steering wheel is exactly the reverse of how you were taking it off, right? So we're gonna position it on the original splining. We are going to plug in our connectors. We're gonna make sure that we get our backing plate screwed back on with those 3 screws. And we'll be ready to put the airbag on, as well as clip in, the 2 airbag pins and the ground. And once those are on, steering wheel's on, we'll be ready to test it out. Okay, everything came together nicely. Steering wheel looks beautiful in this interior. I mean, we've got matte carbon along the dash, and it perfectly matches with the matte carbon on the steering wheel. Perfectly rated leather for durability over Alcantara. It is a wear and tear item. Obviously, you want to have durability. You don't want the Alcantara coming apart on your handles. Stitching, customer asked us to match orange with the purple. It's that MSO theme that he wants to keep throughout the car. And the shift light, of course, the centerpiece of everything. So nicely finished up. We're ready to take this bad boy on the street and check it out. So we just did a couple of pulls. I mean, the shift light is working beautifully for this car. As you know, McLaren's rev extremely fast, and especially with a 675 and a 650S and some of the models that have a few years of age on them, there's no RPM indicator. So you're really approaching that red line dramatically fast. And if you're just, accustomed to the engine sound, that is one thing, but being able to have a visual indicator in your peripherals without having to manually look down on your RPMs and straight onto the road, knowing that you're coming in on that red line, is very, very nice to have in this car. So the wheel is doing its job perfectly for this application. Very, very happy with it. Once again, guys, my name is Kirill. That's JD behind the camera. Thank you so much for watching Carismo Design. If you need to order your custom steering wheel, we've got them in stock for the MP412C, 570S, 600LT, 650S, 675, 720S, 750S, 765LT, Artura, GT, you name it. If you've got a McLaren, we've got a steering wheel. Get in touch with us. You can contact us on Instagram.